Welcome to Spiced Up Civics, your Minneapolis-based youth-led spin on a certain better-known YouTube series. Whether you're here for the poultry or the politics, we're glad you're watching. We're joined today by Jason Garcia, who is running for Park Board in District 4. They will be answering some spiced up questions while eating their spiced up food of choice, which in this case is wings and fries from Oasis Mediterranean Grill right over there at Midtown Global Market. As always, we have a lineup of some sauces made right here in Minnesota. Today we have K-Mama's, Crybaby Craig's, Burn Yo Face from Lovejoy's, Lake of Fire from Abraxas, Red Eye Hot Sauce, and from our neighbors in Wisconsin, Hellfire Dude. So, before we get going with those hot sauces, I just want to ask if you would mind introducing yourself and explain why you chose to run for office.
So my name is Jason Garcia, and I am the DFL and labor endorsed candidate running for Park Board District 4. I really wanted to run for Park Board because I think it's important to have a diversity of voices on Park Board. And also over the past several years, as you're probably aware, there has been a lot of tension between labor, the frontline workers in parks, and the Park Board and administration. And last year we had the first ever strike in our park system that has existed since the late 1800s. So when I found out there was an opening and there weren't any progressive candidates running, I really wanted to make sure that progressive voices were being represented, and especially the workers in the parks had somebody who had their back that wanted to be on the Park Board.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for running. It's obviously a very important time. And with that, we will get into our first sauce, which is K-Mama's Hottest. So it's a Korean hot sauce made here in Minnesota. And then this is just a quick aside. Here are some napkins. And then I'll move that over here. And then when we're done with the wing, we can set the leftovers there.
All right.
And so I like to let my guests pick how much sauce they want to put on. But I like to be pretty liberal with it, just like my politics. So
I see what you did there.
yes. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
So we'll get to the actual sauce later, but I want everyone to know Jason brought us the Lake of Fire hot sauce today. I want to ask, how'd you come across it? Why do you like it?
Yeah. So Lake of Fire is a local hot sauce brand here from the Twin Cities. I actually discovered them last spring, in spring of 2024, at the Taste of. There is a local food expo and showcase every year that is put on by an organization called Renewing the Countryside. That's down in Cannon Falls every spring. And they were one of the people that were tabling there. But the reason that they caught my eye was because my friend Cass, who did this heron tattoo on my arm, was at the table. And I was like, wait, what are you doing here? And they were like, oh, my partner makes this hot sauce. So I discovered the hot sauce that way. They have 3 different flavors. I brought the hottest one. They have one that is a green sauce that's the most mild, and then they have a kind of pineapple-y, mango, medium sweet heat kind of hot sauce. But knowing the kind of things that you like, I wanted to make sure I got the most hot one.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely get into that one later. But for now, how do you feel about the K-Mama sauce?
I love K-Mama sauces. In the job that I had where I went to that food expo, I met the folks from K-Mama. I used to be the general manager for the Indigenous Food Lab Market that started here in Midtown Global Market. So I got to do a lot with local food and things like that. And the people who run K-Mama are just great people. super nice, really generous. So I'm really glad that we got to start with a really tasty sauce.
Yeah, me too. And my favorite thing about it is there's a little bit of heat in there, but mostly it's more about the flavor. And like you actually have added like aromas to the chicken. It's not just like blowing up your mouth.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll move on to our next one, which is a Minneapolis staple. We've got Crybaby Craig's garlic habanero sauce. Grab another thing for that. This one always kind of pours out. So.
Yeah, this is a much thinner sauce.
Yes.
For sure.
All right. Cheers. Now, for a slightly more political question, I want to ask, what is one of the most pressing issues facing Minneapolis today, and why?
I think one of the most important issues that we're seeing is the adversarial nature of the federal government toward not just our state government, but also our municipal government. Like we've seen in Washington, D.C., we have a president who is really vowing to use the military against cities that he deems too liberal or not following his line. As we saw earlier this summer, we had ICE and ATF and other federal agencies right here on East Lake Street that caused a lot of fear and difficulties for many of our immigrant communities that call this area home. So I think that one of the biggest things that city leadership needs to bear in mind right now is how to run an effective government that represents the will of our citizens, while also understanding that we're going to have tremendous and in some cases violent pushback from the federal government.
Yeah, and then just sort of like, let's say you do get elected to the park board come November. Like, what do you think is something that in that capacity you could do about it?
Well, you know, we're seeing a lot of different funding cuts and things like that coming from the federal government. In my day job, I work with farmers, and we're seeing a lot of cuts from the USDA and things like that. So I think it's important that at all levels of government, we look at how we can work together and have a good working relationship, not just within the park board, but also with the school board, with city council, with the executive structure of the city, to make sure that we're leveraging all the different resources that the city has. We can try to make up for some of the budgetary shortfalls by working together. The Parks Department is one of the largest providers of before and after school care for children in the city and in the state by numbers. So there are ways that we can expand that sort of programming between parks and schools. There are ways that we can look at land that the park board has that's often adjacent to schools or nearby to help create spaces for new local businesses like food trucks or things like that to start and incubate while sort of providing a shelter from a lot of the negative effects that we're seeing from the federal government.
Yeah, thank you. And then how do we feel about Crybaby Craig's sauce?
I like it. I think it's a pretty, like you said, it's a Minnesota standard.
Yes.
I think it's a standard for a reason. One of the nice things about it is it's habanero based, not jalapeno based or serrano. So you get a different flavor profile with the heat. But talking about how you have started this project, I had a question based on the timing of when you launched this. Earlier this spring, M. Castle from Racket, if you're familiar with that publication,
Yes.
M and I did a project where we were interviewing mayoral candidates. I think M called it "Let's Talk About Politics," And at the time we started that, a lot of people were like, oh, is this like Hot Ones, but for Minneapolis politics? And then I can't help but notice that a couple months later, you launched this project. So was that any sort of inspiration for you?
Well, so funny you should ask that. Actually, I was inspired to start this project after over the holidays, so over Thanksgiving. We went to my grandparents' house, and we all ended up getting norovirus. And I landed on the couch for about 48 hours. And I felt like I had watched all the TV there was to watch, like all of the shows that I normally watch, all my favorite movies. And I was up at about 1:30 a.m. And I pulled up YouTube, and what was suggested for me was Conan O'Brien's interview with Sean Evans on Hot Ones. And I turned that on, and it just kept going into the next one, into the next one, next one. And I had a thought that, would this be so great if we asked, like, elected officials, or if we asked candidates running? So I put up a post on, I want to say Blue Sky, maybe Blue Sky and Twitter, maybe both, I think. And I was like, I want to do a municipal Hot Ones. Would anyone be interested in joining? And I had 3 candidates either reply or message me personally and say, I'd do it. And so I sat down with my friend Chelsea Sheldon, who is not with us today, but is one of the great minds behind this. And we figured out all the sauces, all the wings, and yeah, so yeah, that's the backstory of this. But yeah, so unfortunately not inspired by let's talk about politics in that regard, but inspired that there's other people, other like-minded people with the same sort of visions. So with that, we will move on to our next sauce, which is Lovejoy's Burn Your Face. And this is one of my favorite ones because it's really where you start moving from, oh, this one's just tasty, to, oh, this one's getting spicy. This is kind of a good, like, medium.
Spots another roasted pepper there.
Yes. And it's darker and thicker, which don't know quite what that means in terms of heat, but I know I've had this about 9-10 times here, so. All right.
Two good ideas.
Yes. So, what would you say in your life or career, or just what about you do you think has prepared you best to serve on the Minneapolis Park Board?
It's a really good question. I'm probably much older than a lot of people that you normally interview. So there's a lot of different life experiences that I could point to. But I'm going to go back to when I was a very young kid, when I was 10 years old. It was during the 1984 presidential election, Walter Mondale versus Ronald Reagan. The first time that I ever really got into politics was I got picked to play the part of Walter Mondale in a class debate. My best friend got picked to play the part of Ronald Reagan.
Oh.
So he's now a theater professor at the University of Washington. So he took it in a very theatrical way. He studied how Reagan talked, how he dressed, how he moved, and things like that. Whereas I've never been a performer like that. So I really focused on what Mondale's policies were. And, my father was a union machinist, so I knew that he supported Mondale because he was very pro-labor. So I really started digging into politics and policies and things like that. And I never stopped. So starting then until now, over the last 40 plus years, I've been really engaged in politics and continually trying to learn about policy and how policy gets made. So I like to think that that has prepared me well to be on a city board like this.
Nice. And then how do we feel about Lovejoy's? Did it burn your face?
In as much as my tongue is part of my face, yes. I can still feel it on my tongue. It's nice because it is a little thicker, so it has that duration on your tongue.
Right.
So, yeah, I liked it. It's a little more vinegary than the others as well. It has a nice tang to it to cut some of that heat.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And then, I don't know if I put this in the right placement or not, but I've got Lake of Fire as our next sauce.
all right. Well,
So we will
we'll
see.
find out.
Yes. It's taking its time.
So you're much younger than me. I have a child who's about your age.
Nice.
What got you into politics?
That's a real good question. My parents went to Europe on a anniversary trip for about 2.5 weeks in 2018, and it was in the weeks right before the election. And my grandma had just gotten involved with Indivisible, and she was like, you know what? Because I'm taking care of you while your parents are gone, you're knocking doors with me. So we knocked doors for Ilhan Omar, Dean Phillips, Rena Moran, Heather Adelson, all the folks that were up that year. And much to her surprise, I actually really liked it. And I just sort of kept going and kept paying attention, kept, standing up and volunteering, and ended up working on campaigns and all that stuff. So yeah.
Nice.
Well, we're ready for Lake of Fire?
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
That one's good.
Yeah. It's got more pronounced smoke to it.
Yes.
I think. Yeah, probably a similar heat to the burn your face.
For sure. So I think the placement was good. But my question for you here is, what would you say is your go-to restaurant in Minneapolis?
That's really tough. Having worked in local food, I feel like I get asked a lot, like, where's a good restaurant to go in this part of the city and things like that. So I would say my fallback, the place that I know I can always go to and get something that I will really like, really good quality food. You can just stop in, you don't need a reservation or anything like that, is Chimborazo on Central Avenue in Northeast. However, I will also say there is a new restaurant that just opened recently on Nicollet near Loring Park called Albi Kitchen. It's a new Somali restaurant. I think I ate there 3 times last week. They have really great samosas. They have these wild drinks that they make that are almost like a float or like a meringue pie in a glass. And they have some really great baked goods as well. So I think those are 2 places that lately I've been thinking a lot about.
Nice. And it's funny you should bring up Chimborazo, because actually you're the second park board candidate we've had on that has said that. Dan Engelhardt last week said that was one of his go-tos. So I shared that I'm a St. Paul guy. So hope that doesn't turn off any viewers. But we just got a Chimborazo actually in my neck of the woods over there. So I still yet to check it out, but I'm sure it's good.
Yeah.
And with that, how do we feel about the sauce?
Yeah, I like it. I think it is. It's maybe a little bit on the hot side for like something that I would just keep on my table at home. But definitely, if I know people who like hot things, I would definitely recommend it for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
It feels like it would be really good on like eggs, like in a morning breakfast burrito, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And then with that, we'll kind of take some jumps here. At least I think they're jumps to these next two. So we've got Red Eye Hot Sauce, which has so generously gifted us this bottle. And it's pretty hot. They are made in Minnetonka.
Okay.
And yeah, so we'll get right into that.
Now, did you do the work to find these, or did people like reach out to you and say, "Hey, I make hot sauce. You should try this one"?
So me and Chelsea got together actually in this space, and we took a look at a list of like what people were saying were like the hottest hot sauces or best hot sauces in Minnesota, because we didn't want necessarily to be like like around the country. We wanted to stay local, because that's what matters. And these are the ones that we landed on. These the first three. And then actually we were like, none of these are hot enough. So then we found Red Eye, which some people were, I think, saying to Axios must have been that was the hottest hot sauce. And we were like, you know what, this is still not that hot. So then we got Hellfire Doomed from our neighbors in Wisconsin. And, they definitely bring the heat. So we'll see how you feel about this one. So, what are our first thoughts on that?
It's definitely the hottest so far. One of the things that I find with a lot of the sauces that go for just real intense heat is that they don't have a real complex flavor profile. I enjoy this one. I think it could have used a little bit more of that roasty, smoky flavor, or maybe a little bit of maybe like an apple cider vinegar or something like that to cut into the just pure pepper taste.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And it's sort of definitely, not as much as Doom. I know I'm hyping that one up a lot. It's worth it. But you're right, it really does sort of start feeling like, oh, I'm just tasting heat at this point, not tasting as much. But I want to ask, this is my favorite question to ask anyone that comes on, and that is, who is your biggest role model? It can be personal, political, any of it.
Man, that's tough. There are so many people in my life that I'm really fortunate to have gotten to know and be influenced by. So, like, obviously, I can say, like, my mom and dad, my grandmother. I lived with my mom and grandmother growing up, and she was a very no-nonsense, kind of tough person. She did a lot for everyone in her family. I would say someone recently that I think of as a role model is Michael Wilson, who is also running for park board, running at large. He just has so much energy and so much drive and so much excitement that you can feel when you talk to him. I really try to bring some of that to when I'm out knocking doors and campaigning and things like that.
That's awesome. Well, Michael Wilson, come on our show. I'd love to sit down with you. And as it's sort of built, because in my experience, as I sort of talk after eating the sauce, it kind of builds and gets more and more hot. How are you feeling about that sauce now?
Yeah, it's still pretty good. I can definitely feel it on my lips still. So yeah, I would like to have a little bit. I find with like the Carolina Reaper and the ghost pepper that they don't have a very complex, rich flavor. So it makes sense that that's kind of how I feel about it. But yeah, definitely enjoyable.
Yes, for sure. This one is definitely not enjoyable. It is Hellfire Doomed. When I first sat down with Trophic, her neck, who's running in Ward 5, she asked me, she said, "Are we doomed? Charlie, are we doomed?" Before I poured the sauce, and I said, "Maybe." And I think, yeah. Now, I think I can say that every time I've had this, it's not really gone too well.
Oh, you mean with the? I thought that was like kind of an existential question.
Oh,
about like our situation in the world.
Look, I love to be optimistic, and we've made it through a lot of hard times before, and we'll make it through hard times again. This is one of those hard times. This right here, this chicken wing. So here we go. I'm gonna just let you sit with that for a minute.
Okay.
Like, kind of attacks your face a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like, what are our first thoughts on that one?
It's very aggressive. Yeah. Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of when I was young and learning to cook. One of the things that, not the grandmother that I lived with, but my Mexican grandmother used to say is like, anybody can just make something really hot.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is making it hot and making it taste good. And I'm not sure that this tastes good, but it's definitely hot. So if you're one of those Scoville units people, that's definitely one that you want to try.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? How are you doing?
How do you think I'm doing? I mean,
You sound all right.
Yeah, I think I'd say I'm doing all right. And I'll that's like as far as I'll go. But my final question for you is, what is one thing that you want our audience to know about you or your campaign?
Well, you can check out my website at jasongarcia.org. I talk a lot about my priorities there. I have some videos, talk about some of my experiences and things like that. But the bottom line is, we have an opportunity to make parks better for Minneapolis, to be more equitable, to build a park system that works for everybody regardless of age, income level, disability status, race, ethnicity. We have a beautiful park system, but it doesn't always work that way. So I'm really excited about an opportunity to work with other like-minded people to build a system that is best for everyone in the city.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for running. It takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage to do that. And thank you so much for coming on the show, enjoying these sauces with me.
Yeah, thank you. It was great talking to you.
Yes.
I appreciate hearing your insights, and as the official spokesperson of Generation Z here, What is something that you think people from my generation or just people older than you in general need to know about how you interact with parks and things like that around the Twin Cities?
You know, my standpoint is that, especially a lot of conversations around public safety revolve around this, but you know, kids need places to be, and kids need places where they can feel safe at all times. And so that doesn't look like, you know, increasing our police in parks. That doesn't look like, you know, closing them down, shutting them down early. That means making sure we have adequate resources and adequate, you know, places for people to be. Because ultimately, if we give kids, people like me, my peers, places to be, then we're gonna end up all right. So that's my mindset on that whole thing. But yeah, I probably would have a lot better answer if I hadn't just done that. But thank you so much for coming on,
Yeah, thank you.
and thank you all for watching.